Good morning. My name is Sean Murphy of SK Murphy, and I will be the MC for today's talk on subscriptions in the consumer packaged goods space. We are fortunate today to have a briefing on subscriptions by Igor Krasnick. Igor is a successful serial entrepreneur who has deep experience in the consumer packaged goods space. I think entrepreneurs will benefit from his insights on subscriptions as a mechanism that needs to mesh with your product, your margin structure, and how your customers buy. Igor.
Thank you, Sean and Teresa, for having me today. My name is Igor Krasny, founder of Ideal Data. I work with CPG, D2C, and B2B brands on operational side of growth, pricing, inventory, and subscription mechanics underneath all of it. Before this, I spent over 2 decades on an agency side of things, building B2B and e-commerce solutions. Subscriptions often get pitched as a single growth lever you bolt on, but subscriptions are not one thing. By the end of this talk, you guys will be able to look at your own business from a new lens. I hope you will walk away knowing which subscription engine fits your brand and which would quietly kill your business. So to summarize, I promise you'll understand the 5 engines that I will present to you, what they are and how to apply them. There's going to be a framework to match one to your business and a clear sense of what to pilot. All right, most brands ask a question: should we do subscriptions? That's a wrong question to ask. The question is, which mechanic should we try given what we sell and who buys it? It's the same premise, but a completely different outcome. Across subscription e-commerce, more than a third of subscriptions cancel inside 3 months, and over a half are gone within 6 months. That is what McKinsey's research has highlighted, and it is the most cited study in this space. So, why does it matter? The reason why it matters is fast churn means the subscription engine can look fine on your revenue report for quarter or more, while your margin quietly goes negative, and usually it does that at accelerated rate because of the subscription nature of doing business. If that were to happen, you would be kind of paying to acquire subscribers who leave before they pay you back. And that's kind of the biggest thing that we will be looking at how to solve for that. The point for today is not to become that brand that selects an engine that will essentially make your business bleed. Before I dive into my presentation, can you please put in chat what type of business you are or what type of products you sell? Even if it's not CPG, I just want kind of like a one-liner of what it is. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. All right. First, I will walk you through the 5 engines, and then I'll give you a framework to choose. Then we'll kind of dive into how to pilot or what are the next steps to pilot that initial choice that you made. 5 engines will take most of the time because the distinctions are where brands get it wrong. I encourage you to map your own business against each engine as I go. Be very creative with this. This is very important. Do not dismiss an engine because you don't see a clear fit on the surface. This is the common oversight I see when I work with brands. There is always a way to implement each subscription engine in any CPG business. Just keep that in mind as we proceed. I have ordered these from most structurally defensible to most novelty dependent. We start with replenishment because it's the most relatable, if you will, then lock-in, then access, build your box, and end with curation, which is the most popular model and also the most fragile. Replenishment and lock-in look like the same thing, but they're not. I'll draw the differences on the next couple of slides so you'll kind of understand the differences between those two. So replenishment, this is the workhorse of one of the most CPG brands could at least consider. The customer already buys the product on a cycle, so you remove the friction of reordering and usually give a small discount for committing. It fits anything genuinely consumable with a predictable cycle, like think coffee, vitamins, pet food, razor blades, cleaning supplies. If the product runs out and gets repurchased anyway, replenishment just captures that demand that already exists. A couple of examples to mention here: Dollar Shave Club, build an empire on it, Chewy on pet food, Amazon, you kind of probably see their subscribe and save replenishment option as you check out. Vitamin Shop is another one. All of these brands have produced this approach not to lose their existing customers to another brand during the repurchase window. There's a separate study that was done, which basically says unless you kind of make it simple for people, even if they buy from you, if you don't offer subscriptions to them, they will go and find it somewhere else because they were looking at a different screen or a different ad at that time. So the trade-off, and this is the one kind of operators underestimate, is the cadence mismatch, the trade-off. And 90%, actually, I would probably say 99%, and that's my guesstimate, of brands that offer this engine lock you into their predefined frequency, which often does not work for every buyer. And you've seen it, right? Like ship this to me every month or every week or every quarter. All of those are predefined options, and they may not meet your kind of demand, if you will, or utilization or use of that product. McKinsey's data is very specific here. Subscribers cancel when a product pile up or they cannot match order volume to the actual use. You kind of default someone to every 4 weeks or a month, as I stated earlier. But they actually use it every 4.5 weeks. And by month 2 or 3, they would have extra product left and the customer churns in that scenario. The fix is fixable, and it's a fixable, like it's not a fixable cadence, but it's you can solve it through technology, but it requires like business intelligence and things like that. You can also have skip functionality for those types of subscriptions, and it's nowadays it's a must-have unless you have that intelligence in place. I'm kind of going on a tangent here. Skip functionality is also a byproduct of inflexible frequency. Smart and intelligent frequency per customer will eliminate this need, in my personal humble opinion. But anyways, let's move on. What else? Retention payoff. This is the highest retention model in CPG space. About 45% of replenishment subscribers stay for a year or more, roughly 10 points higher than curation or access, which I'll talk about later. The retention is simple. When the product fills a real recurring need, there is no reason to cancel. Align the cadence with the real consumption and the engine compounds. Engine number 2. This is a new engine and the one that should feel like a genuine idea, not a curation variant. Replenishment hopes the customer reorder because they still need the product. Lock-in makes living expensive because they have already bought into the device or a format, and that's the whole distinction. You sell a durable anchor, usually high perceived value anchor, often cheap or near cost, and you recover your margin over the lifetime on refills. So think like razor handle and blades, coffee machines and pots, pitcher and fillers, toothbrush and heads. Gillette is the namesake here. The original razor kind of blades model, many cite that brand as an origin for this subscription model. The cleanest lock-in is proprietary format. So think Nespresso, Keurig, Brita, those are like old coffee brands where refill only fits their hardware. The trade-off has two edges, and this one quietly drains you, puts you in it drains you category, so to speak. First, if you subsidize the device expecting a refill lifetime value and customers buy the hardware but never convert to the subscription, you have eaten the loss with no payback. That's a big challenge. Second, refill leakage. The moment generic or third-party refill fits your format, the margin and whole model depends on, everything erodes. That is the Nespresso compatible pod problem, if you guys have heard of it. So the honest framing here is lock-in delivers the highest retention only when the format is genuinely defensible and refill conversion is strong. All right, engine number three. This is my favorite one as of late, especially in the CPG space, and is often overlooked. This is a very different mental model. There's no box, kind of matrix, I guess, analogy here. There's no spoon. The customer is paying for status, savings, or access, not for a shipment, like a physical shipment. What this means is a recurring fee that unlocks something, like think Amazon Prime or Costco example. Member-only pricing, free or fast shipping, early access to new inventory, exclusive content, community. The product is the membership itself and something that's usually costs you nothing or bears very minimal cost. I'm also going to go on a tangent. One of my businesses that I invested in is the Nexeros brand. It's a supplement brand. We're using this subscription model there if you want to check it out, nexeros.com. I mentioned Amazon Prime subscription, and it is the reference everyone knows, hopefully. Paid loyalty tiers and club pricing models are the CPG relevant versions. So, like, kind of going back to the whole Costco example, they have different tiers, right? Like business, early access, whatever. The trade-off here is the perks have to keep justifying the fee continuously, and that's the important part. So unlike replenishment, there is no physical product arriving to remind them of value. The subscriber does, or the subscriber goes, well, yeah, the subscriber does the quiet math in their head every time the renewal takes place. So the day math stops working or the perks feel stale, they cancel, they churn. So membership lives or dies on whether the value is visible and improving. And again, I'm going to underline bold improving. You have to improve the value over time. Retention is driven by perceived value, perceived ongoing value and personalization. So back to McKinsey, McKinsey found that 28% of access and curation subscribers cite a personalized experience as the single most important reason they keep paying. And they expect that personalization to improve as the service learns them. Brands that win continue to increase perceived value of membership over time. And again, I'm like stressing this over and over again because I got burned by it early in my career, but this is very important for Engine 3 success and reducing customer churn. Engine number four, This is a fit maximizing engine with the cost attached. So it is a close relative to curation, which is next, but the customer, not you, makes the choices. You offer a catalog, the customer composes their own recurring box, and they get exactly what they want each cycle. It blends the convenience of replenishment with the breadth of curation. Uh, it fits the regular modular catalogs where personal fit drives loyalty, like snacks, supplements, coffee brands, anything where one person's ideal mix is different from the next person's. The upside is customer chooses every item, which again kind of solves the whole churn situation unless they get bored of all your products that are available. Um, and the challenge becomes that the novelty or the excitement about the products fade over time, and that kills curation much faster. So the customer, the other kind of benefit or the value is the to this model is the customer who are waiting for the product, they're not surprised every time what they get. They pick exactly what they want. I've mentioned this earlier. And that in its own leads to a lower early churn with the subscription model. The trade-off and the reason this is not the default is an operational weight. So every box is potentially different, which means putting together those boxes, mixed SKUs, more pick and pack labor, more room for fulfillment error, human error, or anyways, if you're handling with robots, maybe not no human error. But anyways, the that complexity is not a deal breaker, but it has to be priced in correctly. And it caps how cheaply and how far this model can scale for your business. You can also look at in-house versus outsourcing fulfillment. This is a big one, which you essentially need to look into before you offer this subscription model. And you just need to make sure that this whole thing is profitable. This engine has great retention per subscriber, as I kind of mentioned earlier, but you earn it with operational discipline. If your margins cannot absorb the assembly cost, this engine looks attractive on the surface and will quietly erode your margin like there's no tomorrow. Um, Oh, and I forgot the examples for this one. So if you want to take a look at the brands that have this model, you can take a look at the Whiskey Concierge and We're Here brand. It's a coffee brand box that you kind of assemble and order. All right. The last engine is curation. So curation is very similar to the previous engine, but the decision, what goes into the box is on the merchant, on you, on your business. This one is the riskiest business subscription business model of all of them. You, meaning you as a business, you select the products, customer receives the discovery, they're so usually surprised in the beginning. Um, and the value is the experience behind the subscription model and the experience of being delighted by someone else's expertise. The big risk is what if your experience or whoever is putting that box together, if their experience is not good enough for the other person? This engine is a good fit for discovery-driven categories, usually like beauty, specialty foods, niche or seasonal goods, anything where finding new things is the main point. If you want to see examples, take a look at Birchbox and Ipsy, IPSY in beauty. Both those brands are in beauty. Stitch Fix in apparel and Boxu, I think it's a specialty food brand, if I remember correctly. Just an FYI, curation is also the most popular model by share of subscriptions. Now, the hard part are the two trade-offs. First, novelty fades, as I mentioned earlier. The structural challenge is that surprise has a half-life, and brands that survive turn early subscriber feedback into measurably better month 6 and month 12 selections. So again, it's continuous improvement of this model and the boxes that you ship. Second, the second shipment cliff is the term that I keep hearing, which is distinctive to this model. The first box is hyped, discounted usually, engineered for unboxing, again, kind of the experience portion of the experience portion. The second box arrives at full price, usually with less surprise, and before the customer has formed a habit. And it is and this is a measurable share of subscriptions in this model get canceled right here after the second shipment. The retention reality, kind of in honest words, this is the most fragile engine. Recurly, benchmark data puts general subscription boxes around 10 to 15% monthly churn versus under 4% for replenishment. Meal kit style categories have seen 60 to 70% cancel within 6 months. It's huge. I don't want to sound all doom and gloom here. Curation can absolutely work, but only with strong first box economics and personalization that visibly improves over time. So the most popular model is also the riskiest, which means the real question is not should we do a box? It is which of these five fit us the most? That is the framework. There's no best engine in the abstract. You may even find that two or three of five of these engines will work for your business. The best business engines are the ones that match your product, your margin, your customer behavior. The next slide contains three questions that will help you get there. But before I kind of move on, I would add it really makes sense to spend not just 5-10 minutes with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using to research which model fits your business, but do a research on who are the customers that buy from you on a recurring basis the products that you sell today, how they buy it, why they're ordering at the frequencies that they're ordering, and basically unpack that and peel that onion until the end to figure out which of the five models you would start with first. So now to the three questions. Question one, product. So consumable with real recurring need points you at replenishment or lock-in, usually. Discovery product points at curation or build your box type of an experience. If there is a durable anchor with refill, lock-in is on the table as well. You might not even have the durable anchor today. Maybe that's something that you need to create. That's also worth exploring. Question two is margin, the one most brands skip, unfortunately, based on my experience. So run the actual math, cost of goods, fulfillment, and any knitting that you need to do. The intro discount you use to acquire, and any anticipated early churn that you can anticipate. If all of that, if after all of that, a subscriber does not bring a positive margin with sensible payback window, the engine is wrong. you must come to a complete stop and shift the model and try something else. You can find more in the McKinsey subscription research study that I mentioned earlier. Do not overinvest in free trials and discounts unless the payback is clear, because the people who churn fast and they don't care how that makes you feel. Question three, customer behavior. So predictable need favors replenishments, lock-in, and access. Novelty seeking favors curation and build your box. The mistake is choosing the engine you find exciting instead of the one that matches how your customers already behave and using that as a foundation. Any of these engines can run alongside your normal one-time purchase type of business or scenarios. That mixed cart setup is an implementation detail, not a sixth engine, so do not overthink that. And there's plenty of e-commerce solutions tools that allow you to do both. And to wrap up, answering these three for a generic brand is easy. Answering them against your real margins and your real customers is where it gets hard and where mistakes get very expensive. This is the one slide cheat sheet. So screenshot it. That's my advice to you because this is a whole talk summarized here. As you move down the rows, retention generally falls and the margin demands changes shape. Replenishment and lock-in anchor high retention at the top. Curation sits at the fragile bottom. Access and build your box in between, each with specific cost to manage. Um, what else? Every engine has a cost it imposes on your P&L, profit and loss, if you're not familiar with what that is. And the engine only works if your margin can carry that specific cost. The standing discount for replenishment, the subsidized device for lock-in, the assembly labor for build your box, the intro discount plus variety, yeah, the intro discount plus variety cost for curation. Where the most brands get it wrong is not picking a row, it's misjudging their own column three reality. I'm gonna make an intentional pause here in case you still need to take the screenshot and finish your notes.
You're also going to share the slides, right, Igor?
Yes, I'll share the slides in the PDF after the talk. So that's the whole framework, and you have it at your disposal. The hard part is not the framework, it's being honest about your own margins and your own customers, the data that you have on those customers. And the most brands are too close to their business to see all of it clearly because when we try to implement something, we're focused on the top line or bottom line. We kind of have blinders on when we often either don't want to see the real data or don't know where to find it. This is a very common operators gap. 3 of 4 business operators have this blind spot. And by the way, this 3 out of 4, that's my statistic, my metric based on what I've seen in my lifespan. Um, but the brands that get this wrong are not silly brands. They're very smart brands. They just pick the engine that excites them rather than the one that their numbers are supporting. So, in closing, I wanted to offer help. I work with operators to pressure test this against their real numbers, and I'm offering to do that with you at no cost if there is interest. I started many businesses in my lifetime. This is kind of my way of giving back to the community. You can scan the QR code to schedule a complimentary session with me where we can deep dive and look at this data for your business and figure out which subscription models make sense, which subscription model should we start with first, what makes sense, and how to get it off the ground if you haven't implemented one yet. And one thing to remember, right? The piloting small portion, I want to comment on that too, because we often get excited and want to try and implement multiple things at once, and that is not the best way to do it here. So piloting small means pick one, meaning single engine. Don't pick multiple all at once. Test it on a narrow segment and watch the three numbers. Three numbers are retention by month, contribution margin per subscriber, and customer acquisition cost payback. Those are the three metrics to watch when you're testing this, and you got to give it time. It's not something like you launch it today and tomorrow you look at the numbers unless you have super large volumes. You should let it run for maybe weeks, maybe a month, maybe even a couple of months, depending on your volumes. If those three metrics, again, retention by month, contribution margin per subscriber, customer acquisition payback, if those are healthy at small scale, then you expand. And with that, I think we can go into questions, Sean.
Yeah, this is really well thought out and really well organized. And I think you should make a slide for that last question, the retention per month, contribution margin and payback. But that was so one one thing that occurred to me, and somebody mentioned it in the chat, was that HP essentially got into this business about 20 years ago, where the HP printers became the lock-in device for selling ink. They actually got into the ink business,
Hmm.
where traditionally they had been, and they ultimately ended up investing more and more into the electronics of the printer refill cartridge to prevent, um, I guess, defection. Um, do you think that, I guess the question is, how would you analyze that decision? Was that a did that put them on a better path in the long run or not?
Oh my God, so such a loaded question. I'll give
I
you
I mean, I'm
my personal opinion, right?
sure.
So, if you look historically, a business with the recurring revenue model does better than the one without it. That's just hard facts. We've seen probably a bigger splash of that truth during COVID time.
Hmm.
And companies that were kind of one-off sales, a lot of them unfortunately got impacted, but the ones in the same industry that were doing the same thing with the recurring model, they survived and lived much better during that time. So that's kind of one variable to that equation. Now, did HP make the right move? I think so. And I've also seen, I want to say it was probably Toyo tires, or maybe I'm mixing up on the brand, but I know Michelin or Toyo, I forgot which one of them. They also implement like, and they're selling tires, right? It, how do you implement a membership subscription there? But they ended up doing a subscription where they offered a subscription per mile driven, not even pricing per tire, but per mile driven. And based on that subscription, they just send you the tires that you need depending on how many miles, your cars in the fleet drive, right? It's just different implementation.
So they were selling to fleet managers essentially. They were selling to somebody who had a big, that wasn't to families or a single
Right.
family car. That was
Not
a fleet
D2C.
man.
This is like
Right.
B2B
B2B. Right.
play.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I mean, these examples are all over. Like, I mean, there's a ton of them, right? So I'm going to come back to HP. I think it was smart for HP to make that play um, because look at other companies. I think it's like Xerox, and like there's so many of those companies that were just selling printers, and at that point it becomes the race to the bottom because everyone is selling the same machine that basically does the same thing. And how do you differentiate, right? So from that perspective, I think that was a smart play. And maybe I'll pause here because I don't know if it's a full answer to your question.
No, no, no. I think it's a good analysis. It's essentially by getting the recurring revenue, they can compete against lower cost entrants. They can provide a higher quality machine if they know they're going to make some of it back on the
Yeah.
margin on the ink.
And they're basically becoming, it's look, they're all of a sudden stop being a physical product company. They're like it's a service company of sort, right? Like, and
Right.
they're selling an experience and customer service, and that's how they package it.
So that's how Haloid, the original Xerox, cracked in, was instead of selling the box, instead of selling the copier, they said, we'll sell it to you for, I don't know, 2 cents a copy or whatever. So it became um an affordance in the space, right? Other
Yeah.
question. So Martin, you said you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Igor. I think it has been very useful. I mean, I was thinking about, so for instance, at the moment I have a business and I charge customers every month with a retention, right? Sorry, a retainer. So then it essentially is a monthly payment as well, right? On the other hand, it's not the same as a subscription because for sure the margin is a bit higher, right? And you have a more of a personalized service. So for me, the question that I had, but you somehow also answered it along your speech, right, is what could be the essential difference in the view of the customers on how they buy between a subscription and a retainer, more from a customer point of view, not only the margin, right, but
So, I run an agency, and I don't know if I will be continuing to run an agency or not. So that topic is very familiar to me, and
Mhm.
here are my thoughts and how I
Yeah,
transformed my agency is when you and I'm gonna, before I even talk about retainer, there's kind of one bucket before that. Typically, when agencies start, they say, we're gonna offer solutions or services based on times and material agreement, right? It's whatever
yeah,
hours we charge or we spend, the
yeah,
customer pays for those. The next model is, in my opinion, a retainer model where you say, based on your usage, you spend about 20 hours per month, and this is going to be our retainer. And any overage, I'm going to charge you times and material on top of it, right? If there is a
yeah,
excess. And if you don't spend it, some agencies say you lose it. Some agencies say that those hours roll over into the next month and then you lose them after. Look, it's that aspect. So I'm assuming you're kind of in that bucket, right?
yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
So the next kind of phase of evolution from there is um, value based. And I actually have some books here. Hold on for a second. This is the book that like completely changed the way that I think about this value
Huh.
based fees. If
All
you
right.
haven't read it, my recommendation to for you to read that book. And ultimately, you're not like the because often you don't even know how much time it will take precisely to implement a feature or deliver something for your customer,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
And instead, reframing that into value based, like what's in it for the customer? Why are they doing it? How big of a point it is? Like, will that whatever I'm about to do, how much will it impact their top line or bottom line, right? And work backwards from there.
yeah.
That was very difficult and probably the most time-consuming shift that I went through within my agency. But after you kind
Yeah.
of position yourself that way, a lot of things starting to become like will start to become easier and easier. And at that
Yeah.
point, your value-based fees might be value based per project. They might be
Mhm.
value based on we're going to do a lot of this work with maybe a small upfront investment from the customer, but then you negotiate with them uh, a percentage of an increase that they get from the value that you've delivered. It could be like, look, we're going to increase your sales by 20% by doing this work. There's going to be like, let's say, 150K upfront investment, but that 10%, we're going from 10 million to, what is it? 100 by 10%, it's
100.
100K extra, right? Or 10 million is 1 million. So 1 million more. And then the 1 million more increase, you say, I'm going to take maybe a 0.5% or 1%, depending on that value delivered. And from that, if you meet that delivery, right, you get a small portion of that increase. And if you over deliver, that's an upside to both you and the customer.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, yeah. Sure, it does.
And at that point, and I know I didn't really touch on the whole subscription aspect of it, but your subscription could be just, consultation fee, right? Like I
Yeah,
have businesses who have me as their advisor, or kind of like I answer questions for them on any during 20, like let's say 24/7. They can text me, they can call me, we have a conversation,
yeah,
I help
yeah,
them out, right? And
yeah,
you can just set a fee for that, but usually that is something minimal for you to at least cover your time on these types of talks and brainstorming. But the actual projects, they kind of go into like
yeah,
this area.
yeah, yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not uncommon, depending upon the nature of the work, that you can get a return on ad spend, you can get a percentage of revenue, a percentage of savings or cost savings, and you might be able to split it where there's a report fee that creates the shared context, and then a bonus for the results delivered, whether it was cost savings or revenue increase. That I think it's harder to do with risk reduction, kind of, um, especially for rare events. It's it's a little harder when there's if something doesn't occur, but once every 3 years, you can you're in the insurance business at some level. Teresa had a question. What can we learn from gaming and in-game purchases? Where would that fit in your framework, Igor? What, like with Steam, where you or Valve, where you buy all these, clothes for your characters, or
Oh boy. So where does that fit? So there's a couple of things that I've seen. In gaming, you might have again like a monthly subscription where they give you like, we're running this special season and pay us $10 for the season and you get extra perks. To me,
hmm
this is all like access and membership type of a subscription. And the other micro purchases, they're typically one-off. And there's really no subscription from that perspective in the if I understood the question correctly, in the gaming space. But they provide volume discounts, like buy 100 gems versus 10,000 gems, and we'll give you extra. But it's a one-time purchase. But the subscription, which is interesting, comes into play where, like, I've seen it usually used, like, what's the most popular game? Like Fortnite, for example, right? Like, they do seasons every 3 to 4 weeks, and you pay 8.99 to kind of have extra XP and access to this content. And as you level up, you unlock cosmetics for yourself.
yeah, this is interesting.
And I've seen actually, so in majority of the games, and I used to be a big gamer, not anymore, but what I've seen is there's one level kind of subscription that you offer, but I've seen some games where they offer like buy this season pass for $10 and you'll get these rewards. But if you want like premium, in addition to the $10 month subscription, you pay $15 more and you get even better like golden or legendary type of unlocks. So there's like multi-level season subscriptions that I've seen.
So there's an analogy to kind of season ticket holders getting better seats
Yeah,
almost.
something like that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Teresa, did that answer your question? Yes. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Yeah. So it seems like you're trying to align the value. At the end of the day, the customer's got to be getting value out of not necessarily every transaction, but overall, they've got to look at their relationship and say, this is a net positive for me, right? So, okay, I've got an
Sure.
extra bag of coffee sitting in my kitchen for a week. I'll put up with that versus having a stock out where I wake up in the morning and I can't have a cup of coffee, right? Uh,
Yes. And well, I don't even know how to unpack that. So if we're talking about replenishment engine, right, then I think the next evolution phase is with AI and intelligence predict how often does Sean need a can of coffee that he usually buys? Is that every 3 weeks, or is that every 7 days, every 21 days, right? It's however, whatever your usage is. And
so
within,
the old Pete's coffee, you could actually pick to the day the reorder rate.
oh, that's awesome, but it's not like where intelligence is, in my
No,
opinion,
no, no, no,
because
right, right. That was not intelligence. That was me deciding I wanted it every 27 days for whatever reason.
right. I
Yeah,
mean, like, so people are getting creative, right? And like trying to figure out how do you minimize churn and prevent a person from forgetting to skip or needing to skip, which is a manual action, and humans are very lazy to do that anyway. But the intelligence is going to be like, I've connected, like, and bunch of us have like phones and other, digital devices and stuff like that. I think the intelligence will come from, I know that Igor is going to be out of town, so he is not going to be using this coffee for the 2 weeks that he's going to be out. Therefore, it's no longer 21 days, but it's 21 days plus the 14 days that he's going to be out of town. It's that type of intelligence.
interesting.
Yeah.
Roger makes a suggestion that it may also help with the curation model, personalizing what goes in the box to the individual customer, which assumes, I guess, you're getting some kind of feedback or you're asking for feedback on the composition of each box.
Right. And Roger is absolutely right. And I think it's a two-way street because curation, as it exists in majority of the businesses today, the business owner kind of, or business owner, I'll generalize it this way, the business makes a decision what to put in the box, right? But every customer has different likes, dislikes, and things like that. So how do you know what Igor likes today or next month, if I don't communicate with your brand in one shape or form, right? And that's, I think, is the challenge with the curation box situation, because I may like one thing this month, but 1 or 2 or 3 months from now, what I like might be different, right? And if you don't have that closed loop with the customer, how would you know that Igor is no longer
Well,
likes
or
to read books or whatever, you know?
coffee sales go down in June, July, and August, and tea sales go up because they're using it to make iced tea, and then in the winter they want. I mean, so there may be seasonality, there may be other
Well, but
factors at
even
work.
with tea, to me, it's like a big bucket because, maybe I drink Earl Grey in the morning, but I like chamomile like towards noon, like right, or maybe this month I like chamomile because it's summer and it's hot, but during winter I like something else, right? There's seasonality, and then it might be like all of a sudden I became allergic to chamomile, so I can't have it anymore, right? It's a lot of that. And how do you sift all of that data without having that closed loop is what I'm talking about. To me, it's like it's going to be a fascinating problem to solve, in my opinion, in order for curation type of experience in Box to go to the next level.
So, so when you told the tire story, at some level, what they're offering is an outsourced purchasing agent where they say, what do you want to pay per mile of driving? And then we'll figure out what tire. I would assume there's some penalty if the tires come apart or it's not a road hazard or, but you're actually acting. Some of the curation becomes more almost an outsourced purchasing model.
Potentially, yes. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like, okay, so let's talk about tires. There's different size of tires, so they use different amount of material, right? Like bigger tires, smaller
Right,
tires,
right,
etc. So, but, and again, I don't know that industry, so I'm speculating. Maybe the size of the tire doesn't matter because the tires wear out at the same rate depending on how many miles you drive. Maybe that's what they go for, and maybe that is kind of what suggesting to them to apply. Maybe it's a flat rate per mile, maybe it's per industry, or I don't know. But it's a different way of looking at a problem because uh, on the flip side, before, like, let's rewind, 20 plus years, whatever, I think the sales were like, well, how many tires do you need? And somebody has to, I think I need 10,000 tires for the year, right? And like you're just guesstimating
right.
based on previous usage because maybe there are some, anyways. But now, if the company has enough data to be able to price per mile, and that gives them a better way to estimate how many tires they might need, it's more accurate, right? So, anyways, just kind of thinking out loud here on that topic.
Okay. Well, Igor, I want to thank you for a fantastic talk and a really well thought out kind of framework for evaluating subscriptions and how to manage them or how to leverage them as a mechanism for your business. Um, I think we'll break here.
Sounds good. Well, for everyone who is here, QR code is still on the screen. Last chance to scan it if you want. I'll send the PDF to Sean. He can distribute it. And Sean, Teresa, thank you very much for having me today. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
All right.